Hello friends, today we are going to see how to create load balancer and how to get multiple instances or virtual machines behind them, how to deploy a simple app and how can we access that. So let's see how it works. So before we get started, let me tell you what do I have already in the project. So the prerequisite for this project that I have is I have a source repo. So if you scroll down here and you can see source repositories, and you can see this is the sample app repo one, and if you click on it you will see I have two files, app.py and requirements.txt. This is a simple Python Flask app which returns instance ID and instance name, whichever instance it is deployed on. You don't need to really worry about how the code is done and everything. It's pretty simple. So that's about it. Another thing we have is if you come to compute engine and look at the metadata, SSH key. So I already have configured one SSH key that I will use in order to SSH into the instances. Now if you want to see, or if you want to learn, and if you don't know, and if you want to learn how to create a source repo, how to create SSH keys and how to add them and all that stuff, you can look at my previous videos. They are already there. So let's go ahead and start from the scratch and see how do we set up load balancing. First thing we want to do is we want to go to compute engine. From here we want to set up an instance template. Even before that, we want to go to identity and access management and we want to set up a service account. Now this is the default service account that we can use with the compute engine, but we don't want to do that. We want to use a separate service account that we can assign it to our virtual machine. So we create a service account and we are going to name it my app service account. Compute engine service account. The role, we only want to add very minimal permission role. What we want to do with this EC2 instance is we want to clone the source repo. So that is all we want it to do. So we are going to assign source repository reader role, and that's about it. No other permissions. So my app service account is the service account we will use when we create instance template. Now let's go back to compute engine, click on instance templates, click on create instance template. Now we will just keep the name instance template 1, good enough. This is the machine type, I'm gonna leave it as is. Operating system, I'm gonna change it from Debian to Ubuntu. Ubuntu 16 is good, 10 gig size is good. This is where we will change the service account. We will select the service account we just created a couple of minutes back, and we don't want to create allow HTTP traffic or HTTPS traffic or anything. And from here we will add startup script. This startup script will look something like this. So we will say apt-get update, we will install Python 3 and we will install git. You don't need to install git, it already is there, but in case if it's not there we will install it. And this is where we will clone the repo. So we say gcloud source repos clone, This is the repo name, this is the project name, and we cd inside the repo directory, we install the requirements, we start the application. So because this is a Python Flask app, I'm using Unicorn to host it. But if it is a Node.js or Java app, then you need to do what you need to do. I am not the right person to tell you what to do there. Perfect. So this is my instance template, how it looks like. Instance template name, this is the machine type, disk, Ubuntu, service account is a special service account that I just created. I haven't changed anything else, no change in the security or anything. And we have a gcloud, we have startup script, and that's about it. That is all we want to do, and we click on create. Now while this is getting created, let me show you there is one more thing that I missed to show you. That is the firewall rule. So we have a firewall rule that we want to look at, which is this one, which says that allow incoming traffic from anywhere on my port 5000. You don't really need that, because what it will do is it will allow me to HTTP or allow me to query the web servers. But since we are gonna put these servers behind the load balancer, this rule should not be there. But while you're debugging, while you're testing things out, there may be times when the systems are not coming up as healthy in the load balancer, or for some reason you need to debug it. So you can have a firewall rule here which will allow you to HTTP into the systems, which will allow you to query these systems individually. This rule which says allow 80, that's really not needed. Perfect. So that's the rule, because my system, my application will be hosted on port 5000. That is why I need this rule in order to test and make sure that my application is working fine. I don't really need this rule when I'm actually in production, because we are not going to query these systems individually. We are going to access them from behind the load balancer. So now let's go back to the compute engine, and we can see that we have an instance template here. Perfect. Now let's go to instance groups and create the instance group. So let's click on the create instance group, and we're going to leave the name as is. Make sure you have new managed instance group selected. We're going to leave the instance group name as is. Single zone or multiple zones, when you are learning it, single zone is fine. But if you are in production or even in QA environment, you want to select multiple zones. So what happens is, because if you select single zone, then all the virtual machines that you create, they'll be created in the single zone. So if that zone for some reason goes down, then your application will go down. So in order to get more resiliency, what you want to do is you want to select multiple zones. So if you're creating 3 instances, 2 instances, you want to distribute them across multiple zones. Since we are gonna select multiple zones, that's fine. Select the region. Gonna select East 4 zones A, B, and C. That's fine. Port name mapping. So I'm just gonna name port saying HTTP port. Right now, this is where I'm saying that if when the request comes from my load balancer on a port called HTTP, send it to 5000, port number 5000 on my virtual machines. So that is the reason we are creating this. Otherwise, there is really no reason of doing this. So we select the instance template that we created previously. For this one, we are gonna say don't auto scale. We don't want to complicate this right now, so we'll just delete the auto scale configuration completely, make it smaller, right? So instance template, number of instances, I'm gonna say create 2 instances. No auto scaling, instance distribution is on. This is where Google Cloud is gonna make sure that your instances are distributed across multiple zones. We don't want to do any health check here, and that is about it. And let's click on create. Okay, so our instance group is created, and if we go and look at it, it has 2 instances. If you click on it, it will tell you your 2 instances. One instance is in US East 4A, another one is in US East 4C. That is because we selected multi-zones, and Google has figured out like 2 instances, both of them are gonna be in multiple zones. So this is perfect. Let's go and query these instances individually just to make sure our application is working fine. This is why we created that port 5000 rule. So we go here and you can see my individual instance is working fine. This is the instance ID, this is the instance name. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other instance. And this one is working fine too. This is QX8H, this is KT41, this is KT41 or L, and QX8H. Alright, perfect. So my individual instances are working, but that is not how I want to do it, right? I want to put them behind the load balancer. So now let's put it behind the load balancer. For that, we come here and we scroll down to network services, load balancer, and we click on create load balancer. We get 3 options: HTTPS load balancer, TCP load balancing, or UDP load balancing. We don't want to do TCP or UDP because it's a web application. We want to do HTTP load balancing. We click on start configuration. Where do we want the traffic coming from? Because we are going to access it from the internet, we want to select the first option, which says from internet to my VMs. The other option is only between my virtual machines. This is kind of an internal load balancer, so you can't access it from your desktop if you're working from your desktop, or it's not really for web applications. It's more for microservices to communicate with each other, but it's a containers and everything. It's a different ball game. Let's not go there. Let's keep it simple. We will select from internet to my VMs. Click on continue. This is where we will name it. We will say my app load balancer. Now this will be a little complicated, so just please pay attention. This is backend configuration here. We click on this, we click on here, and we say backend services, and we click on create backend service, and we are gonna name it my app backend service. Backend type is the instance group because we want to redirect our traffic from your load balancer to the instance group. This is where the named port, if you remember, we created a named port in the instance group. This is where we say that because we created a named port as HTTP by default, this also shows HTTP. Now if we can name it whatever we want, as long as it matches. So if we would have named it something else while creating the instance group, we would have named it something here like my app or anything, but because we named it HTTP, we will keep it HTTP. This is where we select which instance group we want to redirect traffic to, and we only have one, so we select that. These are the port numbers. So remember, our instances are listening on port 5000. So what we are saying is when a request comes to this load balancer, redirect it to the instance group 1, whatever instances are on the instance group 1, on port number 5000, because that is where our application is listening. As you can see here, our application is listening on port number 5000. And let's leave everything as is, and we just say done. We don't want to do any advanced configuration, but if you want to do it, it's fine. You can specify session affinity. This is where your load balancer will make sure that if a request comes from a user, if it goes the first request coming to the load balancer from a user, if it goes to instance X, then next time also it will go to instance X. We don't really have to deal with that right now, so that's fine. You can create custom headers, connection draining. You can hover over it and it will tell you what it actually means. We don't want to do any security policy right now, so we will just say this looks good, click on create. Oh, sorry. So we must specify health check. So we say create health check, and we'll say my app health check. Our protocol is HTTP. Our port is 5000. We don't have any proxy, and we want our health check requests to go to the root. This is where we want our health check requests to come to, because that's the only path we have in the application. If you create a special path called /health, then you want to specify here saying send the requests to /health. We don't have that path, so we're gonna leave it empty, and we are gonna say the interval. So these are the health check criteria. So health check interval is where you specify it for so this is where you specify how frequently you want to query your systems to make sure they're healthy. So instead of 10 seconds, I will make it 5, because we want to make it 5, we want to make it quick. Timeout is timeout, how long the request will wait before it is timing out. Healthy threshold, 2 consecutive successes. What it means is every 5 seconds there will be a health check request. If 2 consecutively are coming back okay with 200, then that instance will be considered as healthy. If 3 consecutively come back as timeout or 500 or anything like that, then they'll be considered unhealthy. Let's decrease that for now to 1. So again, the configuration is pretty simple. HTTP protocol 5000 and 5 seconds interval, and we say save. Right, so it's pretty simple here. Everything is more or less very self-explanatory, and we click on create. Next is the host and the path rules. We don't really want to make any changes here, because our application does not have any special paths. If we wanted to send, let's say maybe we have a /account, and there is other backend service which is running, and that is where we want to send those requests. That's where we select this option and we make all those changes. But since our application only has one path, we just leave it as is. Next, front-end configuration. This is where we are gonna say how we want our load balancer to grab the IP address. So this is for the load balancer. So this we will say my app front end HTTP, because we don't really have certificate. Premium, which is like which gives you better performance. We don't really need that, so we'll just say standard, and we will say create IPv4, a formal IP address, or create a static IP. When you're doing it for production, you may want to create a static IP address by clicking here and reserving that IP address. Otherwise, there are chances that this IP address will change. Now, for learning purpose, this is fine. And this is the port 80. So this is where my requests from my web request will go. So from my desktop, I will query my load balancer on port 80. Behind the scene, this load balancer will redirect the requests to these two instances on port 5000. So this is the port for my load balancer, and I'll just say done, and you can review it. It's not mandatory. And once you're good, you click on create. Now when you click on create, this is gonna take a while. So it is gonna really take a while because it has to create this, load balancer, create an IP address, it has to go and do the health checks, and it has to do a lot of stuff. So this is where you have to be really patient. So you click on the load balancer and it will tell you that there is no front end configured right now. My None of my instances are healthy. It's gonna take a while, right? So just be patient. It's gonna figure it out that what you're trying to do. Now if you come back again, you will see that now we have an IP address here. This IP address is my load balancer's IP address. So if I grab this one right now, remember if you look at this, I do not have any healthy instances. So if I go here and I say http // my load balancer IP address, it will tell me I don't know what you're asking me. This website is not there, and we can't really do anything there. It is gonna take whatever it is gonna take. I'm gonna wait for the instances to become healthy, and I may have to edit the video to just shorten the timeline, but just to make sure we are all on the same page, this is where we are setting up our load balancer. So let's just wait for it to finish, and when it is done I will resume my video. Okay, so it took about few minutes, maybe couple of minutes, 3-4 minutes, but you can see that I have two healthy instances here, and my backend looks good, this thing look good. I still haven't tested my load balancer IP address, so we will test that, but just want to make sure that you are patient when this is happening. Eventually it will work as long as you have configured everything correctly. So let's go and check. My local one is working fine, another local server is working fine, and this is my load balancer IP address, which is not working fine. Well, you saw that error, and I really didn't do anything. I just waited for a couple of more minutes and I refreshed it again, and you can see this is working just fine. So it is actually doing a round robin. So I'm getting from QX8H. Next I'm getting from KD4L, and I do it again, QX8H, again QX8H, it will go back to KD4L. There it is. So just be patient when you're doing this. As long as you have configured everything okay or good, you'll be fine. If you get the server error, just wait for a couple of more minutes, and system is gonna just start working fine. So that is about it. Hope you like it. Let's see if you can configure this, and let me know in the comment section how it is, and if I missed something or if there is something that I didn't explain properly, please ask me and I will try my best to do that. Meanwhile, happy coding and happy Google Cloud journey. Thank you very much.